Welcome to Bankruptcy, Through the Looking Glass, with Barry Levine.
Hello and welcome to Bankruptcy Through the Looking Glass with experienced attorney Barry Levine. My name is Kevin Rosenquist. I am your host, and today we're going to talk about bankruptcy versus debt settlement and why bankruptcy is the better option. Barry, great to see you again.
Hey, how's it going today?
I can't complain. Things are good. How about you?
You know, like I said, nobody gives a shit if you complain, right?
Oh, that's for sure. Yeah. I try all the time and no one listens.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
And when you're an old fetch like me, it's tough.
It gets worse.
Yes. I don't know if you know from the comedian Robert Klein.
Oh, yeah. I know Robert Klein. Yeah.
And he used to do a shtick where he's old enough now that he makes his father's noises.
And everybody knows what that means.
Every time I move, yes. Right.
All right, so we talked a little bit about this in the last episode, but let's revisit the key differences between bankruptcy, debt settlement, and debt consolidation.
Well, the first one makes sense, and the other two are a waste of time.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us.
Have a good day. You know, bankruptcy is when you file a bankruptcy, if you go to an experienced bankruptcy attorney, such as myself, you should know going in what to expect, what potential problems you may have, what things to set up. And you know at the end of the day that once you file that case, that 4 months later, at least in Massachusetts, they become very efficient over the decades here, you're going to get your discharge and that fresh start that they promise you. The other thing, I mean, a debt settlement, you know, you get involved in this uncertain process where they have to try to work out settlements with all your creditors. And then, of course, where are you going to get the money to pay the settlements? And the only thing that happens is that you'll make a monthly payment to pay for these guys settling your ostensibly settling your claims. And like I've said, in that situation, you know, there's the 1099 if they do settle something, forgiveness of debt, which you don't get in a bankruptcy. There's, if you have a lot of debt and they settle 2% of it, what the hell have they accomplished for you? You're still
right. It's more, their fees are more than that, probably.
Yeah. And you know, the third thing is it's uncertain. You know, it's like an example would be if a company files a Chapter 11, and are they going to survive the 11 or not? Mm-hmm. You know, and if I'm a creditor, am I going to get money or not? And in a debt settlement, it's looking at it from the debtor's point of view. Are they going to settle a claim? And then if they settle a claim, what's the consequence of settling that claim? I mean, are they also going to have the settlement reported to my credit report as a settlement or good, you know, so, you know, it may do them no good at all. And the last one, the debt consolidation, you know, to me, that's just changing the devil you know for the devil you don't know. You know, you pay off your unsecured debt. So now you may have a secured loan that you have to pay every month, or even an unsecured loan, you know, but you're paying that same debt, which could all probably be discharged in bankruptcy. And on top of that, I mean, you know, all too often people, you know, so I pay off all this debt and I'm paying $250,000 on an $80,000 loan. Mm-hmm. Well, they're giving me new credit cards. I still have these other credit cards. I'm not throwing them away, and they invariably incur new debt. I mean, it's an example. I once represented, people consulted with me. They had, and it's not consumer stuff, but they had a more sense of how stupid people are. They had a plumbing company. There were 3 partners. They didn't pay their withholding tax. They owed the IRS 60 grand or 65 grand. And I suggested a Chapter 11 because in a Chapter 11, dealing with taxes, you make a deposit, their interest rate is prime plus 2.5, and you can pay it out over 5 years. 2 of the partners came. The third partner didn't. They went back to him. He had his house, and he used his house to pay off the IRS. So again, taking unsecured debt, you know, little heavier than that, and making it a mortgage. And I had put them down for another 6 months to come back. And they did the same thing. 60,000, 65,000, the same spiel. I mean, how many times? It's like you know, I won't tell you the joke. It's an old joke about some guy who stands at the Western Wall all the time, and a reporter comes up to him and says, "So what's it like talking to the Western Wall in Jerusalem for 40 years?" And the guy says, talking to a wall. Funnier than that. You have to know it. But so, I mean, so you talk to these people, the same spiel, file the Chapter 11. They go back to the third partner, uses the house again to pay off
The same house?
Same house. Hey, this was the go-go 80s when the market was going up. I put them down, they'd be back. I knew it, because if you can't pay the taxes once and twice, the next time they came back, they had the same liability. There was no more equity in the house. We had to file a Chapter 11, and their business lasted 2 months. And instead of addressing the issue, I mean, getting back to debt consolidation, that's what you're doing. You're just putting it off. And granted, I shouldn't say it's the worst thing, because lots of times people use their dated credit cards to pay day-to-day expenses, and if you're thinking that somehow you can continue with this large loan and use them and pay that's not going to work, but it will for a while. And I learned that a long time ago, is you have to deal with reality. I have a case now. It's an interesting case where a debtor is the owner of $122 million worth of Bitcoin.
Okay. That's a lot.
It's a lot of Bitcoin. Unfortunately, he can't access the Bitcoin. Is being held by a custodian who doesn't want to. I don't know that much about Bitcoin with the codes, to access the Bitcoin wallets, you have to do the Gettysburg Address and all of that.
Yeah, it's a huge long code.
And it's, it's the sort of thing where it's a terrible case. He hasn't been able to pay anybody, and he's worth a small fortune. And, in his before he came to me, I guess he made some promises to creditors to make payments and this, and you don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather tell the creditor, if I'm representing you, I'll tell the creditor that they have nothing. If you want to sue them, have a nice day. It's not going to get you any money. And, unfortunately, a lot of, debtors like to think, it's a wonderful world. Everything, is going to be happy, and I'll pay them off. And sure, I can make you payments every month. And they never make a payment, and it's, again, getting back to what I said before I got off my tangent. You have to deal with reality.
Yeah.
I mean, and, it's like you can't keep the house if you can't make the mortgage payments, and you haven't made payments for 2 years.
So one of the things that we talked a bit about this a little bit on the last episode, of that the biggest fear that people have is related to credit score. So how does filing for bankruptcy affect the credit score compared to debt settlement?
To me, it can only benefit your credit score in the long run. When we pull a credit report for people when we file a bankruptcy, it gives us two figures. It gives us their current credit score, which may be 580, 620, and a year from now, from filing the bankruptcy. And invariably, it goes up 100 points. And when you do debt settlement, it doesn't do anything for you. I mean, all the bad things still show up on your
Right.
It doesn't all go away. Whereas a bankruptcy, there's that discharge, and, it's everything is starting afresh.
So what types of debts can be discharged through bankruptcy that might not be settled through negotiation?
First off, any debt can be settled through negotiations if people want to settle. I mean, parties are interested, anything's possible. I'm a firm believer in, when you deal with debtors and creditors, you try to settle, because litigation only makes attorneys money, and not me, but litigators money. And, at the end of the day, 2 years down the road, do you even remember what you're fighting for? I mean, Again, I'm not dealing with, God forbid, guy got wiped out on a motorcycle, and you're fighting over, the guy was an artist and can't paint anymore. And, we're dealing with credit card, and there usually is a number of people want to be reasonable that you can find.
Right.
The problem when you deal with debtors is they don't have the money to make the settlement.
Mm-hmm.
I can cut a deal. Yeah, I'll pay you $2,000. Where's the $2,000 going to come from? So that's really the problem in a nutshell. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
The bankruptcy gives you, I mean, and I find it amazing how many people, up until the day they retain me or they come and consult with me, are continuing to make minimum payments on their credit cards when there's no hope. Like I said, they don't give you gold stars. They don't send you a Hanukkah present or something like that. Oh, happy Hanukkah.
What legal protections does bankruptcy offer?
Well, the legal protections, you don't get 1099s. You get a discharge if you're involved in litigation, and that's what people file bankruptcy for, peace of mind. If you're involved in litigation, the litigation is stayed. Creditors no longer can nudge you and call you. Any action that a creditor would take, and I think I'm reading from memory from the bankruptcy code, would take against the debtor's property is stayed. If a creditor, and it's usually in cases where people have mortgage arrears and file a bankruptcy to stop the foreclosure sale, or there's going to be a wage garnishment on their, on their wages, a wage garnishment, and the bankruptcy would stop that. When you file the bankruptcy, it stops all that in its tracks. Automatic stay. I like to know people think I'm a lawyer. Section 362 of the bankruptcy codes. Yeah, do read this shit. Stays it. I mean, it would, even if the IRS was coming to seize your assets, it would stop that seizure in its tracks. Of course, in that situation with a foreclosure, it doesn't mean that they can't go back to the bankruptcy court, which they have to do to continue with what they're trying to do. But then you have a stake in the outcome. It's not something that's just happening. The bankruptcy stops them. And, in debt settlement, I mean, I've heard stories in debt settlement cases where the debt settlement company has attorneys who filed answers on behalf of the person involved in the debt settlement. And I don't know how that occurs. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know for me to do work for anybody, maybe others, and often it may not be a Massachusetts attorney, but in Massachusetts, I need a retainer agreement. I mean, I just don't say, hey, it's a nice day, I'm going to do your bankruptcy.
Yeah.
I'll file an answer to the complaint. I mean, it doesn't work that way.
It's not quite like getting an oil change.
Matter of speaking. In a bankruptcy, everything that's going on. In fact, the thing that I find particularly frustrating, one, it's the folks I call junior G-men. They decide, well, I read on Google and I did this and I did that. Google. It's like, yeah, I did heart surgery yesterday. I learned how to do it on Google. The guy lived for a few hours. What can I tell you?
ChatGPT taught me.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, too many of them, they listen to their friends and it's the reality is totally different. You're not going to lose. Nobody's coming to your house. Nobody's doing this. Nobody, it's a certain process, and I can even tell you based on, the trustee who's been appointed in your case in Massachusetts again. I know these guys for over 40 years, whether you're going to have an easy time or whether the guy is pain in the ass, But again, they're always going to get their discharge. But what I mean by pain in the ass is they want to look at things that, my feeling has always been you want to see 3 months of bank statements as opposed to 1 month. Have you ever found anything in the additional 2 months?
Yeah. What's in the next extra 2 months that's really going to move?
Or some of them would like to know, did you engage? Were you divorced within 4 years? It's like, what? There was something there. I may be a cynic, but I don't ask those questions. I got to deal with them.
So what would you say to someone listening who is in some severe debt, whatever that means to them? They're really scared of filing for bankruptcy, and they want to look at and they're looking at other options like debt consolidation or debt settlement because they're so afraid of that word bankruptcy. What would you say to them?
I can't dissuade them from doing what they think is appropriate, but
Sure.
I will tell them it's a waste of time. And when it comes down to any of these things, again, I got another story. A guy has a business.
I love your stories, Barry.
Thank you. A guy has a business. It sells tchotchkes on Facebook, right? The company is totally insolvent. It doesn't maintain any inventory. And one of his creditors got in touch with Amazon store. And any money the company would earn would have to go to this creditor. So the company wasn't able to sell its tchotchkes and operate. Now, we came up with a strategy, liquidate this company, do this, that, and the other thing. I don't want to get into it, but he's looking for guarantees. And we've been dealing with this for a month. And I can't tell you, as a lawyer, I can tell you that the sun is probably going to come up, but I'm not going to guarantee it. When I tell people, the trustee is not, I've never had in 44 years, the trustee come and look at the content of your house. You could be the first one, but it's unlikely for $65 they're going to schlep to your house. It's not going to happen.
Right.
And this guy, too many people, they read and they think this, and then they find out reality has nothing to do with what, like I said, talking about this young, she didn't sleep last night. I mean, you should have seen this thing. I read it. It was very entertaining. I asked if
you called it a manifesto too.
I asked if she brought along a gallon of gasoline to immolate herself when she was done reading it. But, well, you don't deal with many people from Brooklyn out in Colorado.
True enough. True enough. I don't.
But see, I tell you something, when people come to see me, the one thing, the one real bit of satisfaction that I get is, I happen to be very entertaining, at least I think.
I think so too.
And they come out from meeting with me with a big sigh of relief. And they thank me and they thank Kathy because they realize it isn't the end of the freaking world. And it's not.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's great advice. Thank you for joining us on Bankruptcy Through the Looking Glass with experienced attorney Barry Levine. If you'd like to get in touch with Barry, his website is levineslaw.com. And as always, please like and subscribe to the channel. We love having you here. Barry, great to see you again. Looking forward to the next one.
I think I'm going to develop a new ending catchphrase, sei gesund, which means in Yiddish, stay healthy.
Sei gesund?
Sei gesund.
Sei gesund, everybody. See you next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.